lucky enough to be here before the meeting started. We had the Smithton Honors Choir perform for us, including Lily, Caitlin, Lucas, Richard, Ariana, Caleb, Amelia, Brooke, Lindsay, Layla, Luella, Emmett, Sophia, Lila, Dylan, Gabriel, Kyra, and Wolfgang. Thank you to our Fine Arts Coordinator, Brianna Kavanaugh, for setting that up for us. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead and say it again. No. Oh, it was.
Second.
Is there any discussion about the agenda? All right, all in favor, just raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Looks like a unanimous adoption of the agenda, including Mr. Willoughby, who's joining us over Zoom. This month, the equity statement will be read by Ms. Farrow.
Columbia Public Schools, through action and in partnership with families and community, uphold the values, policies, and practices that promote cultural competence. We will accept, embrace, and empower students and staff in their individual identities to establish and sustain human dignity, justice, and equitable treatment and inclusiveness in the classroom and workplace.
Thank you, Ms. Farrow. We will go to special recognition. We have Mr. Moore and Dr. Porter will be presenting this.
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Everybody good? Oh, perfect. Good, thank you. All right, I get the pleasure of doing a really special recognition. And when I say a really special recognition, this is a recognition that is often, in my opinion, one that we don't get the opportunity to do as often as we would like to. And so I am going to have Ms. Kristen Kennedy join me up here as we talk about the great things that she has done with our school counseling program at Midway Heights Elementary School. Midway Heights Elementary School has been honored with the prestigious nationally recognized Missouri Program Award by the Missouri School Counselors Association. This remarkable state achievement recognizes the school's fully implemented comprehensive school counseling program and its impact on student success and the school community. Along with this recognition, Midway Heights Elementary is also a recipient of the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education Geisberg Missouri Comprehensive School Counseling Program Award. Schools selected for this award have demonstrated a commitment to be fully implemented, and Kristen Kennedy, right here, our school counselor at Midway Heights Elementary for the past 12 years, has worked fearlessly to develop a fully implemented program. This emphasizes the impact of comprehensive school counseling on systemic change within their school, use data to create positive change that benefits students and schools, consistently work towards continuous improvement of the program, and embraces collaboration of all stakeholders. So this special recognition will be presented to Kristen at the Missouri School Counselors Association recognition ceremony on March 23rd in Jefferson City. And what I want to say is that we are so grateful and appreciative that Kristen continues to serve our scholars here in CPS. And we just want to take this opportunity to say thank you, and thank you, and thank you.
Dr. Yearwood has a presentation to give for one of our community partners.
On behalf of Columbia Public Schools and our community, we would like to take a moment to give a special thanks to Powerhouse for their partnership in feeding our scholars during the 3 October Professional Development Days. Powerhouse was set up in 8 locations throughout Columbia, including 4 of our school buildings, and served a total of 2,385 meals with drinks during that time. Thank you, a special thank you to Mrs. Carla London, our Chief Equity Officer, Mrs. Lena Fulham, our Director of Nutrition Services, for collaborating with Powerhouse to make this happen. Dr. Stevenson, thank you for your generosity. It served our scholars well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And now Dr. Porter and Mr. Moore will help us recognize our Staff of the Month.
Good evening. We are excited to continue celebrating our amazing educators in Columbia Public Schools. As you might remember, we have put schools on a rotation for board meetings so that we might have the opportunity to recognize our schools each year. The teachers here tonight represent the best of the best. They are excellent instructors, build strong scholar relationships, and support their schools, colleagues, and administration in numerous ways. We are proud to introduce them to you tonight. First up, we have Larissa Monroe from CORE. Nicole Winkler from Blue Ridge Elementary. Lori Whitaker from Parkade. Alexis Dwyer from Russell. Shayla Roop from Midway. Katie Cox, Battle High School.
This month, Dr. Holtz is going to help us recognize our Substitute of the Month.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education, President Waters, and Superintendent Dr. Yearwood. EduStaff in Columbia Public Schools are excited to recognize our EduStaff substitutes each month at the board meetings. Our substitutes are so important to the operation of our district. We wanted to thank and honor these individuals that help support our teachers and scholars. CPS employees nominate EduStaff substitutes. These nominations are reviewed and 2 substitutes are selected to be recognized. For the month of October, I would like to recognize Anne Gray Pruitt. Anne joined the EduStaff team in 2019 and has been doing fantastic work in our district. She was nominated by Dr. Raina Martin, site administrator at Quest South Bethel Street Center, for being a total dependable sub for our school. Anne is always a phone call away when we need her. She is kind and has easily built relationships with our students. Thanks so much, Miss Anne. And now I'd like to recognize Julie Purcell Unfortunately, she was not feeling well and unable to attend, but I have Jim Smith from EduStaff who will accept on her behalf. Julie joined the EduStaff team in Columbia in the fall of 2022 and has continued to share her gifts and abilities since retiring from full-time teaching. She was nominated by Katie Fink, an assistant administrator at the Columbia Center Career Center, for stepping in for us, stepping in during a very difficult situation. Julie stepped in to provide consistency to our students. She built relationships, delivered content, and got students excited about learning after a rough start to the year. We could not have made it without her.
Dr. Yearwood is going to introduce our next award.
The Association of School Business Officials International has announced they have awarded the Columbia Public School District with the Meritorious Budget Award for the 23-24 budget year. The MBA promotes and recognizes excellence in school budget presentation and is conferred only to school districts whose budgets have undergone a rigorous review by professional auditors and have met or exceeded the program's stringent criteria. Excerpts from ASBO's press release and review comments for the district's 2023-24 budget include ASBO's International's MBA and Pathway to the MBA promote and recognize best budget presentation practices in school districts. Your participation in the MBA program for the past 6 years is a testament to your commitment to sound fiscal management and budgetary policies. This award recognizes the district's hard work and commitment to fiscal transparency and budgetary policies. The district's award-winning 2023-24 budget was prepared by the Office of the Chief Financial Officer, which includes Chief Financial Officer Heather MacArthur, former executive to the Chief Financial Officer Tracy Davenport, and Board Secretary Noel McDonald. Congratulations, Mrs. MacArthur.
Well done, Team CPS, one and all. I love the awards. We have no public comment tonight. No one signed up. So we will go right to the report of the board president. And the very first part of that is the scholar voice. So we have scholars from Battle High School who are going to share their experience hosting the Student Council Northeast District meeting on October 27th, which was held at Battle High School. There were 800 students there representing 35 schools. Presenting, we have Mara Behan, who is the Student Council Secretary, and Ethan Cooper, a member of the leadership class. And they are joined by staff sponsors Jill Villasana and Hannah Nandor. Take it away.
Hello, good evening. We would just like to start off by saying thank you for inviting us today. As Ms. Waters said, my name is Mara Bien. I am the Student Council Secretary at Battle High School.
And my name is Ethan Cooper, and tonight we'd like to get you guys to know the Student Council and Leadership class at Battle High School. So kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of this a little bit, Battle High School Student Council is a great way for students to get connected with each other at the building and to plan events for everybody in our school community. As was said previous tonight, MASC stands for Missouri Association of Student Councils. Battle High School Student Council is in the Northeast District, and it is formed by 7 districts, the state is. Each school year, the president of each district holds a district meeting, and the state president school of the state holds a state meeting.
So, sorry. So the MASC Northeast District meeting was held October 27th of this year at Battle High School. And this meeting gave students in our district the opportunity to come together and collaborate, but also learn from one another about what we can bring into our councils. So our theme for the district meeting was Survivor, as well as our homecoming this year. So those two events coincided very, very close together. So we had the same theme to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. And our slogan for the day was outwork, outserve, outlead. And then we had welcoming speakers during our opening session. So this included many people. Miss Samantha Simmons, the Battle High School Athletic and Activity Director, Dr. Adam Taylor, the Executive Director of Secondary Education, Representative David Tyson Smith, and Senator Caleb Rowden. All of these people came to us in our building, and they just welcomed students to Battle High School, Columbia Public Schools, and then their legislative districts. And then this is a slide with pictures of each of them speaking. Students really loved hearing from all the different people. And then this slide kind of shows some of the other people who showed up during our opening session. Along the bottom, you'll see pictures of Battle High School cheerleaders, Battle High School drumline, and then the battalion at Battle High School. They all came in and performed for us. And then at the top, you'll see pictures of our speakers, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then you'll also see a picture of myself and our president, Dawson Peters. We were the MCs for the event, so we got to speak in front of all of the 800 people in attendance, and it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of hype. Oh, sorry. So it was a lot of fun.
So for our keynote speaker that day, we had Kyle Wilkinson, who talked about students following their dreams even though times get hard. And he also told a personal story about his leadership that he inspired all of the audience there in attendance. So throughout the day, middle schoolers and high school students had the opportunity to go to rotations. Now, some of these rotations included for the middle schoolers MASC's spirit and team building, along with collaborating with students from other student councils and discussing school activities and events that they have. And then in the high school rotations, they had Special Olympic speakers and MASC Spirit. And along with collaborating with other student councils in their respective high schools and their school events too. Here on this slide, you can see the middle school and high school rotations. And on the bottom, you can see one of our advisors accepting an award.
So after each student took place and part in each of the rotations, we all came back together for our afternoon session, and this was filled with even more hype than the morning session. We presented awards and election results. We previewed themes for the state meeting and the summer leadership workshop, and then we ended with the MASC duck dance, which you probably know as the chicken dance, but the mascot of MASC is the duck. So we call it the duck dance. This happens at the end of every single MASC event. And you might be wondering, like, why the duck? Well, the duck is calm on the surface, but working very hard underwater. So this is why that's our mascot. And then we're going to talk about donations. So for homecoming and the district meeting, we decided to collect donations for the City of Refuge. So we collected basic needs items from all 35 schools in attendance at the meeting. And due to that, we were able to fill 2 cars, like decent sized cars of donations, and we were able to take them to the City of Refuge. So on this slide, you'll see a picture of myself, Taylor Heath, and Morgan Schaefer, along with the City of Refuge staff accepting our donation that we were able to give them. We actually filled an entire office with donations. It was crazy. And then on this slide, you're going to see some pictures of just other student council events that we take part in. the district meeting was huge for us, but we also do little things throughout the year that really build up. So you'll see pictures of Trunk or Treat that we participate in at Battle Elementary. That's a huge way for us to build coalitions with the kids in our community, as many of them come to Battle High School. And then you can see a picture of a little skit that is done at Call to Battle. And then we have a picture of our royalty members delivering a check to the City of Refuge. We raised over $10,000 for them, which is awesome. That was all due to our royalty kids and like food day that we have at school. And then you'll see a picture from Jumpstart Day. We use that to, we planned a fun assembly and really got freshmen ready to come to battle, and it was so much fun. And then we have a picture of myself and our PR chair holding up the Northeast District flag.
So you guys just got a glimpse of what our student council does at Battle High School, but I want to move to a different subject. I want to talk about the leadership class that is happening at Battle High School. So this class is a dual credit class through Drury University, and it's 6 credits for our students that are taking this class. This class is a little bit different than your normal class. We don't have lectures. We don't have notes. We do activities and we do groups. So we work on projects that affect our school community, and we build leadership skills through these activities and discussions that we have with our peers and classmates. We want to build coalitions with our administrators at Battle High School and with you guys too. And so with this class, we're trying to build those leadership skills and connections through this class and with you guys. Kind of what is graded upon in this class is 5 leadership skills: leading people, leading change, building coalitions, results-driven, and business acumen. Here you can see on this slide our classmates. Some of them are congratulating themselves on the tallest tower of cups using only rubber bands. And some of them are congratulating themselves and excited that they built a bridge out of note cards. And then others are just interacting with each other and enjoying the class.
So, as Ethan talked about, we do a lot of really fun projects in the class, but I just want to highlight the first project that we really took part in as a class, and this was our homecoming parade. And it was the first parade that we've ever, no, that's not right. It was the first parade in multiple years that we've had at Battle, so it was a lot of fun for us to plan and coordinate this event. Planning a parade takes some time. So we were able to work with not only our advisors and our teachers, but also our administration. And it was a great way for us to build coalitions within our building. We had an awesome turnout with over 15 clubs and sports participating within our parade, but also a good amount of people came and watched our parade. So this is a picture of the Battle High School band. They were the leaders of our parade, and they had a blast. The color guard's in there too. And then they're followed by Battle High School alumni, and then the cheerleaders.
So another project that has been going on in the class and that I took part of is breast cancer awareness. I worked on this project with one of my classmates named Brooke Bliven. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to recognize people in our school community who are fighting or have fought breast cancer. And so we had the idea, why don't we just recognize them in a way that would be big? And so what we did is we sent out a poll and we asked who wants to come and be recognized in this big event. And we got about maybe 15 people to come, walk the field, and be recognized for fighting and being brave and going through that hardship. It was such an awesome event, and we hand out roses once their name was called, and everybody enjoyed it.
So the last little event that we would like to talk about, there are much more that we could talk about, was School Custodian Appreciation Day. We love our custodians at Battle High School. They are such awesome people. And so when my peer and I, Taylor Heath, saw that this was an event that we could plan and just say thank you for everything they do, we were so excited. So we decided to handwrite each of them a personalized thank you note. So they got a personalized thank you note, a homecoming sticker because it was right around the homecoming time. And they were given a basket of snacks that they could all pull from. And this event really allowed us to, celebrate the people in our building who go the extra mile for us, not only as a building, but also like for student council. We're always selling something at lunch or handing something out, and they're always willing to grab us a table or some chairs, and we really appreciate them. So like I said, it's building coalitions within our building, but also showing that we have some thanks to give them. And this is a prime example of results-driven, just like we talked about in the beginning.
So to wrap this up, I kind of want to give a brief overview of the leadership class. I know I did it in the beginning, but when we started this class, or when I say we, I mean Ms. Villasana and Ms. Nandor started this class, they reached out to the student councils in other schools and were like, how are your student councils so good? And what they said is, well, we have a leadership class in our school that we have our kids go to. And when they started looking into it, it wasn't just the student council people in that class. It was also other students in that class too. And what that was really doing, it was giving the student council people an area to work, but it was also making and developing new leaders in the school that aren't necessarily in student council, but just in the school. And it's providing a way to express people's skills and leadership. And so that's what we want this class to do. And we're so excited for the future, and we can't wait to watch it grow. Thank you.
I'll let the board ask any questions if you're available for that.
Of course. Sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I want to say that I just feel really proud. I feel proud because you guys are, you're similar age to my kiddos, and the work that you're doing to show leadership and to show gratitude and to harness the generosity of your peers. I mean, when I look at you, I'm like, yep, we're going to be okay. This world is going to be okay. Thank you for showing the initiative that you have, and for being positive, and for representing Battle in such a wonderful way, and CPS in such a wonderful way.
Yeah, thank you.
What new talent did you discover in this leadership class?
Oh my gosh, so many. On the not serious side, a group of like 4 of us became really good at stacking cups with rubber bands. That was a lot of fun. We spent like 15 minutes trying to do it, and it was great. But I think on the serious side, we spent a lot of time working on using everyone's best quality. So you really learn to delegate, but also if someone's really, really good at making a poster, you're like, you're my girl. Let's make some posters. So I think that is really helpful for me and student council to be able to be like, okay, this is the person that I can count on, but also know this person has really, really strong leadership qualities in this aspect that I don't have. So relying on others.
Kind of following Mara, on the funny side, I'm a really good vine maker. Miss Nandor can attest to that. I say that because I cut sheets to make vines for the district meeting that was hosted at Battle. But on more of the serious side, I feel like I have developed a really good positive image with my administrators, and I'm able to reach out to Miss Simmons, who was in the presentation, and be like, hey, I need this to kind of help with this, or what can you do to help make this happen? And so just building that.
I want to echo all the good things that my colleague said, and also on the more fun, less serious side, can we see the duck dance?
Oh.
It's okay to say no. It's totally okay to say no.
I mean, if one of you want to get up here and do it.
Let's do it. All right.
It's just, it's the regular thing.
It's not regular in my life.
Thanks for being good sports.
Yeah, of
Karen,
course.
too.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I've never regretted for a moment that we appointed Ms. Hayes, but this just took it over the top. We will move on to, and so thank you very much for coming and representing Battle. We will move on to the reports from Columbia, Missouri National Education Association President Noel Gilzo, followed by CMSTA Association President Carrie Stith.
Thanks, y'all.
You can do the duck. You can do the dance too.
Oh, I don't think I'll bore you with that. Good evening, Board President Waters and Dr. Yearwood, as well as esteemed administration and school board members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you on behalf of CPS teachers and support staff. First of all, happy American Education Week. The first American Education Week was co-sponsored by NEA and the American Legion in 1921. 102 years later, here we are. Countless other groups and agencies have joined in using this week to celebrate public education. Wednesday of this week is devoted to our educational support professionals. These are the people that keep our schools running and students safe, healthy, and ready to learn. From nurses to secretaries to custodians to paraprofessionals to food service to maintenance and many more, they are a vital part of the work we do and are often not recognized. I hope everyone takes some time on Wednesday to thank those ESPs in their life. I am pleased to report that most district bargain committees have been meeting this semester. They are finalizing their recommendations, which will be submitted in December, following our letter of intent to bargain the teacher contract. Although the CMNEA and district teams won't officially meet until January, we are undergoing preparations to facilitate smooth bargaining sessions. An introductory email went out to the entire teachers unit this morning with some of the feedback we have received over the course of the last year, asking them to prioritize the issues they feel are most important for us to address this season. The actual survey will go out to all 1,458 members of the unit tomorrow morning and will remain open until November 22nd to give everyone ample time to thoroughly and thoughtfully respond. We want to hear from everyone in our unit. The data we collect will be anonymous, but any narrative we might use in our proposals and rationales will be scrubbed of any personally identifying descriptors for the comfort of all who provide feedback. This is the space where everyone can provide input for our team, CMNEA, CMSTA, or unaffiliated. So I hope each member of the unit provides their thoughtful comments on this survey. Speaking of surveys, I'm wondering if the district could provide a single paid day for teachers to complete vector training videos, mental health assessment surveys, EOS surveys, and the like. This fall, it has felt like we are being inundated with surveys with precious little time to complete them. Further, this time should not be teacher-directed time because they are required by the district. Instead, they should occur during some district PD time, especially since additional district PD days were added to the calendar. Teachers should not have to give up their personal time for these mandates. Already, we give up too much of our personal time for our profession, especially those of us who have not regularly received our 200 to 250 minutes of planned time per week. Finally, I wonder if we have data on the following questions. We have been on the road to implementing SRG for the last, I think, 8 years. Do we have data yet that supports the claim that SRG will improve student achievement? That's what our goal is, our focus. What was our student attendance like? So how was our attendance the 2 days after the 3 PD days on October 2nd, 3rd, and 4th? I'm just wondering if having those 3 days off encouraged families to take the whole week, and did that hurt our attendance? For those schools, these are random, by the way. You're not going to find a thread through them. For those who are using the e-hall pass, how are tardy and attendance rates? Does the e-hall pass system make a positive difference? What are the administrator to student ratios at the 3 comprehensive high schools? How many functioning being a key word, staff or faculty bathrooms are available at each comprehensive high school? What disparities exist between elementary schools' student supervision times with an eye towards Title I responsibilities? For the school districts that implemented strong cell phone policies around us, have they seen improved attendance, engagement, achievement? I ask these questions with student achievement and district equity in mind. I hope they provoke some soul searching. Thank you.
It is not fair that we had to go second. But I just want to tell you guys, I know that those of you who know me would be totally surprised that I served as a student council sponsor, but to attend one of those events is life-changing. So if you have not attended one, they happen all over the Northeast. They roam around. Amazing. I still have my duck, by the way. As parent-teacher conferences wrapped up last week, teachers shared that it was great to meet with parents and share their students' success this school year. Teachers and parents working together for the success of every student is the goal of everyone at CPS. Thank you for continuing to take time to recognize teachers that go above and beyond in their buildings, as well as in the district. Tonight, we look at partnering to plan for the redistricting that will occur due to the new elementary school, as well as the Battle Elementary addition. We hope that the community, parents, and staff are given a chance to share ideas for making sure that we do this as equitable as possible. Several of these schools just had a redistrict 2 years ago. And if you plan on another redistrict, then these students and families will be affected in a very short amount of time. We would like to see that students that have already moved schools not be asked to move again. We hope that equity is at the forefront of our planning. MSTA is preparing to attend the Missouri Conference this week here in Columbia, if anybody'd like to come by. Members will be learning about how to best help teachers become leaders in their district and help all educators be the best that they can be. We will be discussing and passing resolutions that will be our priorities for the coming year. As we are entering the collective bargaining season, we want to remind board members that we have over 450 members that need to have their voices heard. MSTA believes in a meet and confer model. Thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do for our district.
Thank you, Presidents Gilzo and Stith. We'll now have an update on Board of Education candidate filing from Ms. McDonald.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Well, it's that time of year. On Tuesday, December 5th, Columbia Public School District will begin accepting declarations of candidacy from anyone interested in running for one of 2 Board of Education Director positions that will become available in April 2024. Again, that's 2 positions. Qualifications are a citizen of the United States, a voter of the Columbia School District who has resided in Missouri for at least 1 year, at least 24 years of age. Filing will be Monday through Friday. It begins at 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 5th, and it runs until 5 p.m. on Tuesday, December 26th. Filing will happen here at the Aslan Building. Candidates filing on the first day will be listed on the ballot according to the lowest number drawn when they come to file. All other filers will be listed on the ballot in the order that they file. Filing on the first day and last day will be available for walk-in applicants, but filing on December 6th through 21st will be by appointment only. Please contact me at my phone number or my email to make an appointment. We will not file on weekends, district holidays, or breaks except on the last day to file. The district will be closed to filing from December 22nd to December 25th. Due to the last day of filing being on a district holiday, filings will be accepted from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on December 26th. Filing will not occur if the administration building is closed due to inclement weather or health-related reasons, and we may not open even on the first and last day of filing if weather conditions make it unsafe for school staff to travel. Me. I am the staff that day. Okay, that's it. We look forward to taking lots of applications.
Do you want to say anything about the workshop?
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, December 14th. Did I say that? From 6 to 7 p.m. Thursday, December 14th, we are going to be having a candidate information workshop. And you can see that on the agenda. It's posted online on the agenda. I did update that to put that information in there. But we'll make sure that gets on the district calendar. For anybody that's interested in finding out more information, what it entails, if you're on the fence, that workshop will be from board members, and that will be a really great way to learn about what it's like to be a board member. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Ms. McDonald. I'm so sorry you have to come in here the day after Christmas to accept filing applications, but we look forward to seeing who in our community is interested in serving with us. We'll now turn the time over to Dr. Yearwood, who's going to cover the CPS Balanced Scorecard.
Thank you, President Waters, Board of Education. Recently, we underwent an audit of our school district, and one of the findings is that we are a school system, a systems of schools, not a true school system. And as we go back to policy CH, it says the policies adopted by the board and the procedures and directives developed by the superintendent to implement policies are designed to achieve an effective and efficient school system. So as we talk about a balanced scorecard, we're talking about just that. How are we promoting a school system? A balanced scorecard looks at a school system not just as a system of schools, but as a school system that is driven by policies and also followed through with procedures and directives. If we ask, how do school systems operate? How do you coherently manage the school system? We do this by making sure that we have a system that is aligned. And not only aligned, but a system that allows for measurement. When you look at the scorecard, it's not just about only measurement, but it looks at measuring continuous improvement. A school system has to focus on growth. This is how we celebrate the hard work of our board or administrators or teachers or scholars by looking at the progress and the growth that occurs. We have world-class partners in many colleges that are relying on us as a partner to provide successful growth for scholars or business leaders, members of our chamber, members of our community are expecting us to grow our scholars. Now, we can measure and monitor something, but does it get better? We are developing a system that has to be laser focused on growth. And when we all focus on growth and there's a full commitment, our entire school system can then begin the process of looking at celebrating success as well as reviewing areas of opportunities. This is why we have our psychometrician on board with Ireland LLC to review and to help us with this important metric. So I'd like to turn to slide number 1 that's on there. Sorry. As we look at this slide, coming to Columbia, I came here by choice because the community that developed this, the vision, the mission, and these values, says we want to be the best in the state. The community believes that. The community says, we have that vision statement of being the best in the state. We have the mission statement of providing the best education for scholars. And I believe in that. I know that that's something that I live by, of being the best. So when I saw this, big question is, how do we know we're achieving our dream, our vision, and our mission? So we looked at systems. And here we have what is called our comprehensive system. We start at the top with our vision, our mission, and our purpose. But as we drill down, to support this, we develop what is called a strategic plan. The strategic plan is created with input from our community, from our internal stakeholders, other external stakeholders. But from there, we go to developing what is called our goals. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. From our goals that come from our strategic plan, or our top goals, which growth, innovation, and so on, achievement, we then look at what are we really going to focus on? What are our 3 focus areas based upon what the community and everyone has developed, which then transfers into milestones, which are actually the actionable steps, the work that is being done. So again, looking at our strategic plan that was developed, please note, very, very important, number 2 on purpose, slide number 2 on purpose. Every decision focuses on scholars first from our strategic plan. Our 3 goals from our strategic plan: growth, innovation, and achievement. And our focus areas from those goals, creating high expectations for our scholars, making sure that we are providing that, we'll be making that mission statement come alive, improving core instruction, and of course, bringing it all together under one umbrella, our instructional framework. And then we look at our milestones that is connected, the work. So we have what is called an implementation from our audits, from our CSIP, and we have different teams that are aligned to making sure that the work, what we say we're going to do to achieve those focus areas, those goals, are divided up. So we have our governing team, our board, we have our district leadership, cabinet, myself, we have our school leadership, and then we have steering committees that are created. So as we look at our balanced scorecard, there are 4 distinct areas. There's a financial perspective, and then there's what is called an internal business perspective. And those areas make up part 1, which we'll talk about today. The other parts, part 2, which is innovation and learning and customer perspective, we talk about in December. And one of our milestones, A7, says very clearly that we would adopt measures on a CPS, Columbia Public Schools, balanced scorecard. So again, we will bring the financial perspective and then the internal business perspective, which talks about other operational avenues that we must look at to demonstrate that we are achieving our goals, we are achieving our focus areas. So we will start off with the financial part, which I'll turn over to Mrs. MacArthur. But notice here, as we look, one area I want to pay attention to, enrollment trends. As we look at our financial outlook, we must look at revenues and expenditures. As we look at our enrollment, as you see, it's sort of flat, it's stabilizing. Stabilizing is okay. You don't want to be decreasing, you're stabilizing. But what impact is that having or going to have on our revenues for the future as we stabilize, as the growth does not occur? So again, I just wanted to show you how everything fits together and how everything flows from one to the next. And then at this point, I'll turn it over to Mrs. MacArthur to walk us through the financial scorecard.
Good evening. Thank you, guys. Again, this slide that we see on the screen here is the slide that shows key performance indicators that relate to school finance. You can see the trend on the right-hand column over the last 5 years of our data here has remained in the green for all of the years that are on the slide. Again, these are like nationwide metrics that people use in school finance that can be used internally and externally to determine if certain items are falling within an allowable range or acceptable range. Again, outside entities such like bond rating agencies would use these kind of key performance indicators when they are looking at our district and compare those to industry trends. Like Dr. Yearwood said, the enrollment trend, that's important because our state revenue, you hear me talk about when we talk about budgeting season, our state revenue is based on weighted average daily attendance, which has an enrollment component into that. So it's tied to revenue. So you can see, again, we know we all peaked in 2019-20. This is a state and nationwide issue, not just a Columbia Public Schools issue, but then we had a drop off, but we have steadily increased since 2020, and we're slightly over Dr. Wilson's office and the assessment and intervention and data department have collected data and we're right over the 18,800 for the 23-24 school year. So again, like Dr. Yearwood said, we're stable in that. And we also talk about our largest source of our expenditures is definitely payroll, which is our salary and benefits. Our ratio always falls into right around that 80% range. And so for the 23-24 budget numbers, right under that at 78.6%. And you can see over there in the green, it's between 70 and 80%. Our instructional expenditure ratio then falls between the 60 and 70% range, as well as a high end of that range at 68.2% for the current year budget. And then our administrative cost ratio, number 4 on there, is they like to see it less than 15%, and we're usually hovering right around the 10-11% range. And then our debt service ratio is right around the 10 to 11% range as well. And again, that's less than the 15% that we like to see in our industry trend. And our ending operating fund balance ratio at 38.8%, which they like to see over 30%. Do you have any questions?
I have a question about the administrative cost ratio. What administrators does that include? Just central administrators or building level also?
It includes building. It's the administrator. It's pulled by function. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. When we report our expenditures to DESE, they are reported by there's certain administrative functions, and they're 2,300. So anything that falls into the upper level administration, building level is 2,400, and so that's a different line than the administrative ratio that's on this slide.
Can you give me an example of what falls in this instructional expenditure ratio?
So anything in instructional expense is something will be in a function that's recorded in our financial statements as a 1,000 function. So anything elementary, middle school, high school, special education, all those things fall in an instructional career center. All those are instructional functions and would fall within that. So it would include salaries, benefits, and service and supplies that fall within those functions.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you look at the budget, there's different pages. The way those back pages for the financial section is broken down, we can break things down by what we call object code, which is salary, benefits, service, and supplies, or we could break them down by function level, which is what that you actually are doing. So, and that's things like instruction, administration, and those type items. And so there's, if you look in that section of the budget, you can see the way those numbers are kind of sliced and diced in various different ways. And so anything that's instruction, so any elementary instruction, middle school, high school, special education, title, instruction, all those are different instructional functions as recorded by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so what's pulled, these numbers are pulled from our financial statements and our numbers in our budget book. And so it's pulled by those same function breakdown.
Sorry, maybe just a follow-up. So approximately, I realize there might be other things in there, like if we see that payroll is the 78%, and then the people in payroll, potentially most of them fall either under instructional expenditure or administrative, or is that not?
So the people, you mean the people that do the payroll or the?
Right,
No.
I mean, like, I'm assuming there's overlap on these, right? Because
Correct, because they're broken down in different ways.
in different, okay.
Yeah, so there's going to be salary objects within all the different functions of the breakdown of what people do. So there could be administrative salaries, there could be maintenance salaries, there could be instructional salaries, and so there's salaries that fall within all the different types of breakdown of function codes. If you ever get I want some like fun reading, the annual secretary of the board report also that you submit to DESE, and all school districts have to submit annually, also requires us to break down all of our expenditures in those same ways. So it's broken down by object code, by function code, and by function and object code. So sections A, B, and C, if you're ever interested.
Okay, so now we will move into the second part of our key performance indicator. And Dr. B, our psychometrician, I thought he was going to be here to join us, but it's okay. We can move forward some with it. As we look at this KPI or key performance indicator, we're looking at things like attendance, out of school suspensions, and of course our performance overall in reading and math. So let's look at attendance as an example. If you look at the chart there, you notice that for fall 22-23, we see a growth measure. Remember, these are all growth measures of 10.3. There's a calculation that goes along with this. What we do is we look at last year's performance in attendance. So for example, if last year our attendance was at 70%, or let's use an actual one. Last year, we had a school, Fairview Elementary, they were at 79.6%. This year, at this point, this fall, they're at 81.7%. The change between those two are 2.1%. But remember, as we look at our data, the 79.6% last year means that they fallen short. The range goes from 0 to 100. It's a percentage. So at 79.1%, we really are pushing to get to 100. That's ultimately what we always want to have as our metric. And so they're actually 20.4 percentage off of getting to 100. So they were at 79.6, right? They're 20.4% off from the 100. But this year, we are at 81.7. So there was a growth of 2.1% compared to last year. But now we want to say, how much are we actually growing in comparison to our ultimate goal of 100%? And when you do that math, it's the change versus the room to grow. So it's 2.1 divided by 20.4, and we end up with a 10.3% a metric that we have. I'm sorry, this is explaining this actual metric, how we got it. The one for Fairview was at 86.2 and 92.1, and their growth was at 42.7. So when we look at a growth factor, normally we get data, we say, okay, you had 80% last year, you had 90% this year, and you have improved by 10%. But if you're looking at how are we actually growing in terms of our ultimate goal of 100%, you can't calculate a growth like that. You have to say, based upon where we were last year, and we were short of our ultimate goal of 100, where we are this year, this is how much we're actually growing towards that goal of, or improving towards that goal of 100%. The other metrics that we have in here, and by the way, the trend is at 5%, because at a 5% growth, that gets us to over 90%, which is our actual a part of our goals that we have for a district. Then as we look at our elementary schools in OSS, they have actually reduced their out-of-school suspensions at this point to 38% when compared to last year. For the secondary schools, they have actually reduced their out-of-school suspensions by 42% compared to last year. The trend is at a 10%. That's what we expect our trends to be. So they have actually surpassed their trend in out-of-school suspensions. The problem area is looking at our reading and our math. As we look at our growth factors from last year to this year, the expected growth is at 5% because we're looking at 5% growth on our iReady data. But this year, in reading so far, we have grown by 0.4% and in reading, and we have grown by 2.5% in math. Now, by looking at this metric, we are picking it up. We are seeing initiatives in place. We're seeing more incentives in place. So the expectation is that we will start moving closer to that 5% growth as we move throughout the school year. Again, this is a new metric that looks at, are we growing as a school system? And like I said before, we have data. We have the 80s, the 90s, the 79, and so on. But what does that actually mean? What are we actually measuring? And so as we look at our growth factors, that allows us to put ourselves in a pathway to be on the trajectory for improvement as a school system. And of course, we look at these growth factors by campuses as well. Questions? Dr. B is on now. Dr. B, can you hear us?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. You'll get the hard questions. I did the work. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Sorry, sir. I did such a good job. We don't have any questions. I'm sure there'll be more questions coming later on as we look at the scorecard. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
All right, well, Dr. Yearwood, you're not quite finished because we have the CSIP update.
Yes.
And you're in charge of that too.
Yes. As you know, the CSIP has a variety of goals, and we have been presenting on the academic goals. But there are other areas of the CSIP that also need to be addressed in terms of looking at things like finance, looking at from our human resources perspective, as well as our operations perspective. So at this time, we will start with, again, myself going on. Our theme this year is to inspire greatness with intentionality. It goes along with setting high expectations about improving our academics, about setting our instructional goals. And I always want to remind us, always, that to get there, we look at what our community or stakeholders said, this is what we want you to do. That's our vision, to be the best, our mission, and so on. And of course, the values that we have embraced as a community. So as we look at this, we look at our three focus areas. Very, very important. Creating that high expectation. With high expectations means we expect a growth. We expect our scholars to grow a minimum of 1 year academic growth in a year's time. We've spoken about that time and time again. We talk about improving our core instruction, getting our magnificent teachers, or teachers that do such a magnificent job every day. How can we encourage them to grow as well? How can we encourage our administrators to grow? Superintendent, how am I growing? So that we can all impact our scholars. And then to make sure that there are commonalities, to make sure that we're all on the same playing field, developing systems that will allow us to see the commonalities kinder through 12th grade, or instructional framework. This is well on the way, and we should be seeing more about this probably, when would you say, Mr. Moore, we'd be ready to talk about the instructional framework? Yeah.
At minimum by that time frame of December.
December, okay, thank you. So keeping this in mind, we want to talk about other areas that do impact our, where we're going, and I'd like to ask Mrs. Holmes to talk to us about substitutes and that goal, or indicator.
All right, I'm going to talk about this slide, which shows the substitute fill rate. Indicator 2.2a is to increase morale and maintain excellent operations. The annual substitute teacher fill rate will increase to 80% by the 2026-27 school year. The slide shows a comparison from August to October 22-23 school year versus this school year's August to October 23-24 data. The fill rate for 22-23 in August was 85%. And then this school year, August, was 84%. But the need increased from 315 to 513 needed substitutes. In comparison, this August, 165 more vacancies were filled. The fill rate for 22-23 in September was 73%, and the school year September was 78%. There was an increase in need from 1,653 to 1,723 vacancies. In comparison, 150 more vacancies were filled this September. Lastly, the fill rate for 22-23 in October was 71%, and then this school year in October, the fill rate was 82%. There was a decrease in need from 1,979 needed substitutes to 1,328 needed substitutes. So we have been above 80% for 2 of the 3 months of the school year, and the EduStaff and CPS partnership is continuing to aggressively recruit new substitutes to the pool. We've increased wages, and we are working on using the feedback that we receive from our substitutes to improve the substitute experience in our buildings to improve retention.
We hear from Dr. Porter that will talk to us about advanced courses in ACT.
As I'm sure you remember, indicator 3.1a is the number of scholars enrolled in college-level courses will increase by 10% by the 2026-27 school year. And so this graph shows the number of scholars enrolled in AP, dual credit, and dual enrollment courses. And just a brief reminder of what all that means. Dual credit courses are taught by CPS teachers and are eligible for credit at regional colleges and universities. Dual enrollment are courses scholars sign up for at local colleges, and they are taught by college professors. These include scholars in the early college program. Our data shows we are up over 7% from the 21-22 school year, so we are already almost to our goal. So that's very exciting. You can also see an increase from last year in both. Indicator 3.1b is about ACT. It says the average ACT score of graduates will continue to exceed state and national averages. ACT data is not yet finalized for CPS and for the state. The state will release the finalized data on December 1st, excuse me. Just a reminder on ACT, national and state averages for 23 graduates are in fact down, but national averages are down for the 5th year in a row, according to ACT.org. The 2023 class that was shut down during freshman year is the 23 class, and so that kind of tells you where they are in their COVID progression. And preliminary data shows that CPS still exceeds state and national averages. I think Ms. MacArthur is up next.
Thank you. So this next slide, you guys will see here is our long-range financial plan. Indicator 1.1B says the Board of Education, Superintendent, and Chief Financial Officer will ensure the district demonstrates fiscal responsibility by maintaining 3 months of expenditures and reserves ongoing throughout as we progress forward. And you can see here, it's still early in the fiscal year, but this is a 5-year model you are familiar with seeing throughout our budget season as we progress through in the spring. This 5-year model has been updated from the original one that was seen in the 23-24 budget and has the final projected year-end actual amounts for June 30, 2023. The difference between the projected and actual figures was less than $500,000, which equates to about 0.2% of total revenues for fiscal year 2023. The updated projections you see also on this slide have been incorporated for fiscal year 24 and beyond due to the increased property tax revenue that we discussed back in August as we received our preliminary assessed valuation numbers and did the tax rate hearing presentation in August. Approximately $3 million in new revenue is included in the operating budget in this 5-year plan that you see here compared to what we saw in the original 23-24 budget. This is the only major change that's been incorporated for 23-24, causing the projected fund balance to increase for the current projected 23-24 school year. Again, additional funds have been set aside for compensation improvements in the 5-year model, as you will see on the next slide, based on those new revenue assumptions that we have incorporated from the assessed valuation and the property tax revenue. At the state level is a different story, though. Our outlook for state revenue is looking very grim. General state revenues at the state level is down $100 million from FY24 from FY23 due to state tax cuts that have been implemented. Permanent revenue plateau is what they're calling the PRP at the state level through year 2030. We're not going to see revenues in total at the state level until that year. The state adequacy target is as the number that we use incorporated for our foundation formula funding is projected to increase from $6,375 to $6,760 for the 25-26, but expect withholdings in other areas such as transportation in the coming years to be able to meet that threshold. You will see this slide many times after the first of the calendar year. Again, as we start with the 24-25 budget process, we'll make adjustments to it as we get the final assessed valuation numbers at the end of December, and we'll closely monitor actual year-to-date expenditures and projections as we progress through the year. There's a slide missing. It's the compensation one. No, that's not it. Yes, I'm so sorry. I don't know where that presentation came from, but we do, the next slide should be the compensation plan, which is included with our 5-year model. Again, indicator 2.2A, the Human Resources Officer, Chief Financial Officer, and Board of Education will review compensation rates to attract and retain high-quality employees. And so the slide shows the funds put into compensation improvements for all employees over a 5-year time period. Last year for the 22-23 school year, the teacher's salary schedule received right under $2.1 million in improvements, and for total improvements to schedules was $5.6 million. And then again, the cost to operate all the schedules is $2.8 million for a total salary improvements for the 22-23 school year of $8.4 million. So for 23-24, which is our current year, the budget that we have, we put $1.3 million into the teacher salary schedule. Total improvements to all schedules at $3.7 million. Again, we focused last year, as you were about to add on, to make sure that our hourly schedules made the $15 base salary schedule. So there was additional money put into those non-certified schedules. The cost to operate, again, right over $2.7 million for a total salary improvements for the current school year of $6.4 million. And then now what we're projecting, and this is what have changed, this slide shows that $2,150,000 is what we're projecting to put into the teacher salary schedule for the 2024-25 school year, with total improvements to all schedules at $4.5 million. Again, the cost to operate all the schedules, $2.8 million, for a total salary improvement for the 24-25 school year of $7.3 million. This is an improvement. The total improvements have increased from what the original budget number said. For the 24-25 from $2.5 million to $4.5 million for allocated for total overall salary improvements. And also then for 25-26, we're projecting to put an additional $2 million into the teacher salary schedule. Total improvements to all schedules at $3 million. Again, right over $2.8 million to operate the schedules for an increase of $5.8 million for total salary improvements. For the 25-26 school year. Again, that is an increase of $1 million is what is in the current 5-year model for the 23-24 budget, to $3 million is what we're projecting to put into the salaries for the 25-26 school year, according to the slide that is on my presentation that is not on the screen. It is. Okay, so you guys can see it. Okay, thank you. So no additional improvements beyond the operation of the schedules is included in the 5-year model beyond the 26. And so again, we've talked about this many times. If we want to continue to be able to recruit and retain employees, probably to spring of 2026 is when we're going to have to start thinking about if we want to go for an additional revenue sources, an additional tax levy, or a waiver of our Prop C requirement. As we progress through the next couple of years, we'll closely continue to monitor our revenues based on our projections and what we can continue to allocate towards recruiting and retaining our employees, which again, as we saw on the KPIs, is about 80% of our total overall operating expenditures. And then the next slide you'll see is just a quick overview of our 24-25 budget. Again, it is early in the year, but we'll start hitting pretty next month, the December in 2023 is when our annual comprehensive financial report for the last fiscal year will be completed, and you guys will get the audit and the financial statements next month. So we always talk about in finance, we're always in 3 years at one time. We're finishing the prior year, working in the current year, and starting projections for the next year, all during this time of year. And so we'll also start in December, as we receive last year's numbers, the board will start reviewing the updated 5-year model and discuss budget priorities for the 24-25 school year. January, we'll want to discuss and approve all the 24-25 budget parameters, and then the administration will begin, and the board will begin to review updated revenue and expenditure projections, as we also start meeting with all of our building and departmental administrators and start receiving and discussing preliminary requests for the next school year budget. Also in February and March, the board will review and establish funding for compensation increases during the negotiation process with employee groups, and will authorize the issuance of teacher and administrative contracts for the 24-25 school year. And then we get to March, and the board will look at fixed costs and establish assumptions for those for the 24-25 budget. In March and April, we'll also start looking at capital requests, which will be submitted and reviewed by administration, prioritizing the use of local capital funds for small project and equipment needs. And also the board will review capital projects in April and authorize discuss long-range facilities planning needs. And we usually do approve those capital projects ahead of the end of the fiscal year, since we have such a short timeline in the summer to be able to approve those projects, to be able to get as much done on those summer projects as we can. Also in April, the board will review salary and benefit expenditure assumptions for the 24-25 school year, including salary increases for steps for experience, improvements to salary schedules for all employee groups. We'll begin reviewing one-time and recurring additions and deductions also to the operating budget. And then May is when we will bring you the preliminary budget with a summary and implications of all the year-to-date revenue and expenditure recommendations. And then finally in June, you get the final budget document for the next school year. So that's what we have to look forward to for the next 6 months. And the last, one more thing for our presentation is Mr. Gooch will come up and talk about long range.
This is the most exciting thing in the world to talk about. No, maybe not. But just when we are looking at attendance areas, first of all, probably need to just kind of review the why. It's not because it's an enjoyable process. It's not because it isn't difficult, because we're making very, very hard decisions. But it is part of board policy that each year you as a board at least review if there's a need to do attendance areas. The biggest fuel, the biggest reason that we have to do these is we have been in the last 15 years in a very aggressive construction phase. And we've added a lot of brick and mortar capacity during that time frame. And the why for that was that a number of boards probably 20, 25 years ago made the decision that we needed to get out of the trailer business. Columbia was the leader in school districts with over 200 trailers, which was far more than anybody else. There was a reason for that when that happened, but things have changed. First of all, funding, bonding capacities have changed, that sort of thing. Also, we've had a huge change in the philosophy of school safety, and those individual isolated portable classrooms present safety challenges. So we endeavored to reduce trailers, and we are getting very, very close to at least functional zero. And in doing that, we have some more capacity that's coming online the next 3 years. And that will require us to take a look at our attendance areas. So what you have today is a draft document. You have an action item a little later in your meeting that will either accept or not accept the contract of a consultant that will help us come in and do the demography work, help us build those boundaries and that sort of thing. If you choose to accept that contract this evening, the real work of this will begin at our December meeting, and we will have cooperative strategies on board to kind of just lay out what they plan to do, answer your questions. I guess if I can give you some homework for that is a couple of months ago we talked about general guidelines or principles, guiding principles to do that. And we talked about that in a work session. But if there are some other things that you would like to include in that, that's the time to do that. And our consultant will be asking you if there's any additions to those guiding principles. So that's something that you can be thinking about. Just to kind of highlight this, this is a process that's going to start in December. Upon acceptance of the contract, we'll begin working with them kind of behind the scenes with the data collection. And they've done some work for us before, so the learning curve with them and us is very, very low, and we will get to work very rapidly. What will happen in January and February will be a series of focus groups. They use focus groups to gather information, and it will be all different segments and demographics. Ones we've done in the past have been teacher, parents, administrators, city and county governmental workers, developers, and community members at large. So we'll have a number of those, and that will be data collection to help them build and hear what the community in those segments are looking for. And so that will be a time of a lot of listening. And then we'll have an internal long range working group that is working, and as they're collecting data and the consultant has questions of how they need to proceed or what options or convey messages back and forth between the board, we'll be able to do that. Then in February through April, we really get into the planning. That's when they've collected a lot of information. They go and do their homework, and they really start developing possibilities and scenarios. And they'll be determining, what some pros and cons of these are, or what, we may have multiple options, but they may hit different levels or different pieces of those guiding principles in which you've indicated you want to look at. Because sometimes we find that some of those, any two or several of those, may be a little bit opposed in actual being able to be practically implemented. So that will be that process. We'll work through those type things. And then as we get into the April timeframe, we foresee probably starting to bring some of that to you for approval. We anticipate kind of a three-phased approach for this. In the fall of '24, we will have the Russell Boulevard addition available to us, which we were planning to be able to implement originally for this fall, but due to some construction delays and that sort of thing, and a project that kind of started there at the end of COVID, we decided not to do that. And that was actually the third phase of the last time we did this. So we put that to pause, but that will have to be taken care of and decided how we do that in the first phase. We'll probably come to you in April with that to get that started, because that will be ready, so we can get that ready for the next school year and that sort of thing. The big piece of it will begin in the fall of '24. We have another elementary opening at that point in time with the addition at Battle Elementary. So that'll be another piece from an elementary standpoint that will have to be looked at. We're going to look at secondary as well, because we have a number of pressure points, and we need to at least look at those pressure points and how they look like they're going to hold up over time, if there's anything we can do to mitigate that. And so that will be part of the study. And then the final phase would be in the fall of '26, and that's when the new Southwest Elementary School comes online, and that will be that last phase of our elementary realignments at that point in time. So that's kind of the big part. If you look at the bottom of that graphic there, you can see that there will be updates or partial action items for you as a board all the way along this process, particularly through July of this year. And then as we implement those phases and get ready to do that, there will be also updates and reminders for you for that. So that is kind of what we're looking at, anticipating. If you as a board approve that contract, we'll work and start getting hard dates for this, put those into it, so you'll kind of have a map of when this is happening and how, and instructions. And there's a lot of logistics behind making that many different listening groups work and being manageable. So we'll start putting dates and times to that, so you'll know where we're at. Do you have any questions?
So I just want to clarify, in April, quite likely you guys will be bringing us an idea to approve for kids that would start in August of '24 at Russell.
Yes. Yes.
And then in July, we would get something to approve for Battle and
Probably the next
Southwest.
two
That would
phases,
be
yes.
the next two phases.
Do
Okay.
that for a couple reasons. We want to get that group that's going to be affected fairly quickly, as much time as possible, and to kind of keep it simpler, so everybody understands that. But we also have to really look at all three of those, because one thing that we want to do, and we want to be very careful that we're not moving the same students in multiple phases. So that has been something that during our last rendition of this, we did look at, and that's why we did the three-phase approach. So we did that, so we knew what those three phases looked like, and we weren't touching the same attendance areas and moving those around again. So students shouldn't have to be moved more than once if they have to move during this three-phase period.
I don't see any other board member questions. I have one. Oh, and the slide just, can you put the slide back up that was up there previously? Oh, thank you. So it says that there's going to be an online survey and open house and events, which I recall as a parent of older students going through this process but if that's happening in March, and then that timeline feels very compressed to do the survey and have the events.
There's a considerable amount of focus groups that are really looking and working different options, and they'll bring in different options and get feedback from all of that. Then they've got to kind of take that back, and then they'll start doing some further, and we'll start looking at, how many students are affected moving in each of the scenarios. What's the transportation effect, cost? Do we have the capacity, and those sort of things. So by the time we get to that, those open houses and that survey, the last two processes, we've had like 4 options. So we've worked down to that cover really several different directions. So we get to that point. So then they're kind of taking that final look, that final feedback. They're getting final feedback from you as a board, and then when we come for approval, then in the past they've brought two options for the board. Now, if you want more options as we go through this, or you want less, that's possible too. But there will be feedback. And you as a board will know what those options are shaping up as they kind of come down the funnel. And we started at one time with about 12, and then by the time we get to the survey, which is open to anybody, it's online, and then these open house events, which there's no criteria, there's no selection process or anything. It's totally open. After we get that feedback from those final set, then they start boiling it down and bringing to you then that information. They'll take that survey and they'll look for trends that are coming out of that survey to share with you too. And that also drives in which options that they're taking. So they're trying to bring all that information into major trends that are coming through, and then having options that are meeting those criteria. Because sometimes those trends are also in opposite directions. So last time when we got to 4, there were basically two options that kind of went one major direction that was very strong in all the feedback, and 2 that was strong in another way. So, I mean, like I said, the fun part of this process is not an easy problem-solving event. We always have a dilemma, because with every one of these options, there are people that are impacted more than others. So that's the reality of going into this.
Sure. I don't think anybody's like super excited about moving boundaries, but as I appreciate the clarification. I just wanted to be sure that after we had had the open houses and done the surveys, there was going to be plenty of time to compile that information and digest it and tweak the plans if we needed to with board input and, administrative input. And it sounds like there is.
And in the past, we have been able to do that. And so we'll work this with cooperative strategies to make sure our timetables fit what they need, the time that they need to turn that around and be able to communicate that. So.
Okay, so all the media that is here, make sure you've got this timeline so you can share it with the public so everybody knows what's going on now. And then no one is surprised in July or in April and then July when we vote.
Let me dispel one thing that I've heard today, and I've had it come up in a couple different conversations. There's no effect on anyone this school year. There's nothing happening this school year. So that has been out there as some confusion. So I just want to put that out there, that is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you to the administration for providing that update on our CSIP. We will move on to the consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Or first of all, would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda for separate consideration? Ms. Farrell.
I would like to remove 9E 13B, Crown Consulting Program, Como Ed Program Student Paraprofessional Counseling Memorandum of Understanding. No, just for separate consideration.
For separate
sorry.
consideration. And
yeah.
Okay, I've got that down. And Mr. Willoughby?
I would like to pull for separate consideration item 9D1, policy BBF, school board member ethics.
For separate consideration, you said?
Yes.
Okay, done. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 9D1 and 9E13B? April, or Ms. Farrell?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed?
No.
That's you? Okay. The consent agenda does not pass because it must pass unanimously. So, do you have a specific concern, Ms. Hayes, something that you would like to have pulled for separate consideration?
I don't. I thought that all the questions have been asked.
So, no, the motion on the floor is to approve the consent agenda minus those two items.
All right.
So,
yes.
okay, so let me restate the motion and we'll vote again. So the motion on the floor is to approve the consent agenda minus items 9D1 and 9E13B, which are going to be considered separately. So we're now voting on the rest of the consent agenda. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye. Okay, the consent agenda passes unanimously. I'm sorry about that lack of clarification there. Okay, so we'll move on to item 9D1, the policy BBF, school board member ethics. Is there a motion to approve policy BBF?
I move to approve policy BBF, school board member ethics.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes. May I go, President Waters? I pulled it for separate consideration. I think it's an important topic. You know, it's the ethics that we're going to be following around ourselves. I think from a larger kind of space, a lot of the changes that were proposed by MSBA and the things that came from policy committee worked really well. Part of why I wanted to pull it is there's some changes that I potentially would like to either propose as amendments or potentially amend this motion that is up for approval to change the item for policy BBDF to actually be a first read and review, and then to return it back to policy committee so that way they can take any of the suggestions that are brought up in dialogue to discuss some more to see if they would be willing to make those changes or not. So that's why I pulled it. So what I'll go ahead to do is make that motion to amend the current motion on the table, which the current one is to approve policy BBF, school board member ethics. And what I'd like to amend the motion to read is to have policy BBF, school board member ethics, be up for first read and review and to refer back to policy committee.
Okay, so the amendment is to change the motion from approving it to referring it, to changing it to a first read and discussion and referring it back to policy committee. Is there a second?
Second.
So if we approve the motion that's on the floor now, we would send the policy back to policy committee for further review. And then I would assume, Mr. Willoughby, at that point, you would send your language to the policy chair, Mr. Harper, and he could bring up those amendments in committee at that time?
Yes, I can do that, or I can share publicly so that that's there too, as well as send it to Mr. Harper.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to ask a question, which was just because I know typically when we put policies on consent agenda on the tier 1, it's typically because it's legal changes specifically, right, or minor changes. And so I'm just wondering from policy committee if there's just an explanation of sort of the extent of those changes, and then also, I guess I would be interested in hearing from Mr. Willoughby the additions or like why for him that something, sorry, I'm having trouble getting words out at this moment, why the request to send it back. So I can understand better from both parties.
Okay, so that sounds like a point of information. So Mr. Harper, you can kind of explain the gist of the policy changes, and then Mr. Willoughby, if you want to go ahead and, well, let's let Mr. Harper go first.
I was just going to say the tier 1 policies are placed on the consent agenda for approval. These are policies that are required by law or requiring minor changes. For example, we've got a tier 2 that requires a little bit more of a change in a little bit. Minor changes could include such examples as simple wording changes, title changes, or other wordsmithing. In this case, it's somewhat of a wordsmithing, I do think that any policy like this will always have gaps because ethics is very expansive. So I'm interested in hearing what Mr. Willoughby has to say.
All right, then if there's no objections, Mr. Willoughby, I would say you could go ahead and list all of your amendments as a point of discussion. Maybe just say what you would like to see added, and then that can inform people's decision on whether or not to vote to return it back to committee. So we're not going to be voting on your actual amendments right now.
Correct. That makes perfect sense. Thank you very much, President Waters. Can y'all hear me fine? Okay, great. So there's about 4 that I wanted just to suggest in it. The first one was within the duty of care section in the sentence that starts with board members will consider the ideas and opinions. What I wanted to do was kind of suggest an adjustment near the end of that sentence and make it state before casting a vote, based on the available facts and their independent judgment in meetings. And so part of why making that addition of based on the available facts and their independent judgment in meetings is to keep the ethos that's there of we're going to be taking in the variety of opinions and perspectives on the issues while we, as well as board members, when we're casting these votes, we're going to be also basing our decisions in those available facts and within our own independent judgment from all of the variety of opinions and perspectives that were shared to us. The second one I wanted to suggest was just a full addition at the end of the duty of loyalty section to say that board members will refrain from divulging confidential information presented during closed sessions, except when required by law. I think that that's just an important thing to keep in as a reminder constantly, because I think it's one of those things that can be easily forgotten at times because we have conversations in closed session that bleeds into things that are talked about in open session. And so making sure that we have that as a part of our policy on our code of ethics, I think is really important to kind of keep that as a reminder there. The third piece would be to sort of combine the current, how it's listed, number 3 and number 8, and make an adjustment to where number 3 would read near the, starting at the arrived piece, saying arrived at meetings, informed concerning each issue to be discussed on each meeting's agenda. To me, item 3 and 8 are somewhat similar. And I think this sort of just combines those two together. That's more of a cosmetic kind of suggestion. And then the last one was just something, an addition pulling from what was in the previous policy, was just adding an additional item on the list. And so obviously the number might be different depending on if a combination of things occurred, but that language just reading, board members would express personal opinions during meetings, but once the board has acted, accept the will of the majority. And I think that's a really important practice to, again, very similar to the second suggestion I provided of just it being a part of the document that's there when it comes to this policy that we have, so that it is kind of that reference that we as a board can go back to, as well as future boards can go back to, and saying, you know, these are the practices that we have, and this is how it's very deeply outlined in some of these sort of fundamental ways. I will say, I agree exactly what Mr. Harper shared, that ethics is quite expansive. And so these are just sort of things that I think are somewhat important to keep remaining within the document, but I fully also understand that even though they might not be if they end up not being in the document at the end of the day, right, they are a part of the ethos of our ethics as a board.
Mr. Harper, if you have a comment?
Yeah, if it's the will of the board to go back to policy, I don't have a problem with that. I don't believe it puts us out of compliance not to change it in this meeting, and I think it's important to get it right. So if the will of the board is to go back to policy, I have absolutely no problem with that from my point of view.
Thank you for that. And Mr. Willoughby, thank you for enumerating your proposed amendments. I count 4 amendments, one to the addition to the duty of care, an addition to the duty of loyalty, a combination of items 3 and 8, and the addition of previous number 10, or adding number 10. So is there any other discussion? Okay, so right now the motion on the floor is to refer the policy back to committee. So all in favor of referring it back to committee, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, the policy has been referred back to committee. Thank you. That takes care of item 9D1. The other one was item 9E13B. Is there a motion to approve? Let me pull that up, excuse me.
I move to approve item 9E13D.
Okay, that is the B. I'm sorry, did I say D? It's 9E13B, the Como Ed Program Student and Paraprofessional Counseling Memorandum of Understanding. There's a motion to approve by Mr. Willoughby. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Farrell?
Yeah, I just wanted to to pull this, to have conversation on it. The MOU is for our Como Ed program students and our paraprofessionals. And my question is, are paraprofessionals part of our employees that get benefits through the employee assistant plan when it comes to the mental health therapies and things like that?
Ms. MacArthur, do you have an answer for that?
I do, but the actual MOU is for all Como Ed participants, not just the paraprofessionals. And so there's students and there's paraprofessional as two programs. So the paraprofessional is the non-traditional program, which takes individuals who work either as paraprofessionals or classroom aides or instructional aides that may want to go back to school and then come back and be teachers in our school district. The traditional original Grow Your Own Como Ed program is raising students who are Columbia Public Schools graduates that then go to four-year universities that we partner with in our local community and then go to school and then come back and sign a contract to work in our school district. And so, yes, paraprofessionals that are currently employees could receive benefits through EAP, but the Como Ed program is not all for current employees. Most of them are actually students who are not our employees.
No, I understand that the people involved in the Como Ed program are not our employees and don't have that benefit. So what are you're saying that the paraprofessionals that this contract would serve are also not employees? They don't fall under the employee definition.
No, I'm saying some of them do. The paraprofessionals, currently I believe there's only 3 in the non-traditional program. And I think there are 4 now Como Ed student graduates who are now teachers in our school. The rest of them, the large majority of them are still students. And so this MOU, yes, there is a subset that the EAP program, the students served, would overlap.
Okay.
But the large majority are not yet employees of the district.
I gotcha. Thank you.
And as a part of the teacher recruitment and retention grant, a part of them was dealing with trauma to make sure that these students are successful. And so it's important as that we use money that was one of the reasons why we got that grant to be able to support those students.
Are there any further questions on that item? Okay, there is a motion and a second to approve item 9E13B. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that item is also approved. That takes care of our consent agenda. We'll move on to new business. We have the consideration of policies for first read and final approval, which are Tier 2. Is this Dr. Yearwood or Mr. Harper?
I guess should I make the motion to to approve the policy as
You are correct. We should have a
as
motion.
stated in the agenda.
Are you asking me if I should ask for a motion? The answer is yes. Is there a motion to approve policy IGAD, the career and technical education?
I so move.
Second.
Now, is there any discussion? And I don't know if this is Mr. Harper or Dr. Yearwood. I'll let you fight for it.
I'll just say that the reason for the change in this policy is that a state law was passed that emphasizes career and career education. The MSIP was also amended to emphasize high quality career and technical education. And so this language does that. And then there was also an addition to the Higher Ed Act that required some disclosures. So all of this is essentially to comply with both statutory MSIP and federal law requirements. Dr. Yearwood, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think you've hit it very, very nicely. It's revised the policy to reflect MSIP 6, which emphasizes the importance of a board-issued statement of commitment to implement high-quality career and technical education, but also holds that the details of meeting this commitment are best left up to the CSIP. So that's all I wanted to say.
there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. This will be a roll call vote. The motion on the floor is to approve this policy.
All right, Mr. Willoughby,
Yes.
Ms. Farrow,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Mr. Lyman,
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass,
Yes.
Ms. Waters.
Yes. Okay, the policy IGAD, career and technical education, has been passed unanimously. We'll move on to consideration of the GIS mapping and demographic service bid award and agreement. Is there a motion to approve such agreement?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Willoughby. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Snodgrass seconds. Is there a presentation on this item? I think we sort of covered it. We have the bid in our.
I mean, I can talk to it. I think Randy just stepped out maybe to go to the bathroom or something. There's not a presentation. This is just a new business item. It is the recommendation of the interview team and the administration that the Board of Education approve the proposal and agreement for consulting services with Cooperative Strategies through June 30th, 2024. And it does have 2 consecutive 1-year renewal options if we so choose. We did receive the qualifications for GIS mapping and demographic services. 6 responses were received. You can see they were all listed here: Cooperative Strategies, Business Information Systems, Flow Analytics, ArcBridge Consulting, RSP, LLC, MGT Consulting, and then based on the qualifications, we did bring in the 3 interviews on October 18th. Cooperative Strategies, RSP, and Business Information Systems, and were reviewed by a panel here at the administration building. Blake, as the chair of the Long Range Facilities, joined as well. He can give his input as well. I was on there, Mr. Gooch, Dr. Porter, Walt McManus, who sits in our technology department, and then we have Dana Reynolds and Lisa Ozanich from purchasing. And so after the interviews, the interview team found that if Cooperative Strategies to be the best and most qualified, capable of performing the services that we were requesting. And so we are requesting again that you approve the contract running through June 30, 2024 with the 2 renewal periods. And attached on your agenda item was the proposal and the contract from Cooperative Strategies.
Thank you. Mr. Willoughby, did you have anything you wanted to add as a member of that committee? You don't have to. Just
No, but I'm more than willing to answer any of my colleagues' questions about it.
Mr. Gooch, we're talking about the GIS mapping agreement.
Yes.
If you had anything that you wanted to say about that.
This is, we went through a process to select this company. This is the group that we've worked with on the last 2. We're very confident that they are very capable of doing what we need to do. And also there is some advantage of having that continuity. And in fact, I think everyone that presented in that process, they bragged about clients that they had, returning clients, because that was so very important to them. So even the competition, was talking about how important it was to have that continuity. So they don't have to learn everything about us in one session. They've been through it with us a couple times. The consultant that will probably be the primary on this, she knows Columbia very well from a demographic standpoint, from a mapping standpoint. I think they'll do a wonderful job. So I'm very confident that who we're asking you to approve will give us the expertise, the professionalism that's required, and also the sensitivity. I've worked on several of these now. This is the second in 5 years or so. In a 6-year period, I've gone through 3, and each time Karen Jackson has led a majority of the listening sessions, and she does a very good job with our community. She truly listens. She's respectful. She's knowledgeable, and so I encourage you to approve. I think we'll be in a good spot. In like I said before, in a process that is difficult simply because of the nature of the project that we're in.
Thank you for that. I had a question actually during your previous presentation, but it kind of hinges upon the approval of this. But I'll go ahead and ask it now since this is the motion on the floor. You had mentioned that cooperative strategies, if they're chosen, would have some homework for the board in coming up with our guiding principles.
Yeah.
Is that something that they could send to the board like via email, like some prompt?
It's not
type
exactly from
questions?
them, but she will ask. I can send out a prompt to you guys and just have you to think about it and show what we have in that, because we put what we had basically previously used in the RFP. So I can send that to you, and if then there's anything additional that you would like to include in that, she'll be asking that when she presents next month.
Okay, but if we're discussing it next month at the board meeting, it would be helpful to have that before the meeting so we can, thank you.
I mean, I'll send that to you here this week, and you, just to remind you what those points were in the RFP, and you can look over those, and then throughout the month be making any notes or anything you'd like to.
Mr. Willoughby, were you trying to say something and I didn't catch it? Okay, sorry. Okay, Ms. Hayes has a question.
So how do they plan to deal with the sensitivity of some of the school areas where there's a high number of free and reduced lunch? I'm thinking about a Battle, a Blue Ridge, where those kids are really pushed together, and that how do we lessen that so that kids across our district have opportunities of mingling with students from different backgrounds?
Well, like I said, in the past efforts that we've made, there seems to always be some internal tensions with the priorities that we would like. And so that is one of those questions that comes up every time. The way that they have handled it, the way we've tried to guide them to handle it is, let's see what that does to a map. Ask the question, what if? And early on in that process, that we've got a lot of opportunities to ask the what ifs. And we can look at the map. And then, okay, if we did that, what then is it? How many students are impacted? We can look at that. What might the transportation costs be? Because the geography of affluence and poverty in Columbia, there are some realities, and whether we can adjust those as a school district, that's one of the questions that comes up every time. But part of that, in the way that we've been able to make a decision, is we've looked at that. To make an improvement in this area, what is the impact on overall students? What is the cost? And sometimes that works in the total opposite direction too. So the way we've navigated this in the past two processes, is we've let people ask that question, and then the great thing right now is the technology that we have that can kind of be mapped up on the fly. So
I hear that, but we have a Battle Elementary, and it is high numbers of free and reduced lunch scholars. And so that was the promise when it was built, that it would be pulling from different economics groups, and that's not happening, not at the rates that were promised. So that's my question, and I'm going to ask them many times. I'm going to push that.
And what we will do, we'll show you to make say a 15% improvement in that. This is what the map would need to look like. This is what the impact would be. So all of that is there, because like I said, none of these are easy answers, because there are some universal facts that are just happen to be. But we have not tried to hide that, and we have not tried to run from that. We've just simply shown this is what it would take to make that happen.
Thank you.
And ultimately, you as a board will get to decide on those decisions.
So when we're working with them, they're using ArcGIS, or so we can go with as blank a canvas as we want, to where we could say, from the front door of every school, if a school bus leaves in 30 minutes, where would they be? And they could give us a map of that. If we wanted to say, erase all of the lines and give every single school the exact same number of free and reduced lunch students, we could have a map that says that. Now, logistically, that's probably not something that we would be able to do, because geographically, Columbia it is what it is, unfortunately. But those are the types of things that we're going to be able to ask for and get, correct?
Yeah, you will be able to, in fact, not the last go around, but the last time we did, when we were bringing John Warner Elementary, we were looking at secondary. We looked, because we had a focus group that was like diametrically opposed. Well, what if we wanted to make a 50% improvement in balancing free and reduced lunch at Battle High School? And in the course of about 10 minutes, they created the scenario, and they said, okay, if you were to do that, the map would have to look like this. And quite honestly, it was a really strange looking map, and it would have required a tremendous amount of movement throughout the town, and it would also, it impacted a very high number of students overall too.
With that, then, it's like we could also ask for a map, because I know that a big thing is going to be, my child just went to a new school 2 years ago. They were at Grant, now they're at this other school, and trying to maintain that that history there. We could also ask for a heat map of sorts of the district. What are the neighborhoods? What are the areas that have moved the most often in the last however many times, to try to refrain from moving those folks?
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to interrupt for a second. I want to make sure that we're keeping our discussion to whether or not we're going to approve cooperative strategies, and not veer into discussion about like, what could we do with all the boundaries? So
yeah, the point is, these are the types of things that they can do.
Correct.
Well, and one of the advantages of cooperative strategies is they worked with us on our last elementary, so they understand very much and they have all the models that they went through, all the renditions last time. So they know which areas were touched, and yeah, they have that knowledge.
Okay. Mr. Willoughby, you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, cooperative strategies, they've been a really great partner. They also have a lot of tools that they use. Like, they have an index that pulls in not just around free and reduced lunch data, but also pulls into a variety of factors that look at socioeconomics. So degree attainment in areas, home ownership, their racial and ethnic demographics within areas. And so they really use this index factor to really create some opportunities to look at maps. One of the things that I think is really what's compelling around it. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased because they work with Auburn Public Schools in Auburn, Alabama. But in that work that they did, Auburn Public Schools asked them to really try to create a more equalized elementary system. Now, there are smaller city public schools than we are, but they have it, they provided that, and they made that decision where there's a lot of there's islands, there's kind of splits up of what the map looks like. But I mean, those are the things, and they utilize that index to help really guide Auburn Public Schools to come to that decision of what would be the best mapping there. And so, I mean, cooperative strategies will work with where we are at. I think another thing for us as a board too, in that sense of looking at, as well as cooperative strategy really works with those work groups in helping, bring what ends up being like Cooperative Strategies presents around like potentially like 30 different maps to them and help in guiding that narrowing down to where we get to things. So I mean, they're a really great partner and they do a lot of great work and they do have a lot of tools that I don't think you don't always think about. I think, John, when you hear about them, you'll nerd out. I promise that you will. But so I just share that just because please know that I do think that they are the right partner for this when we're really looking at our elementary schools, but also potentially considering a larger entire district kind of change of lines.
Thank you for that insight. All right, so the motion and the second on the floor, the motion on the floor is to approve the agreement with GIS Mapping and Demographic Services, and there is a second. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Mic's on, everybody.
Mr. Lyman,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. Farrow,
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby,
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass,
Yes.
Ms. Waters.
Yes. All right, the agreement is approved 7-0. We will move on to consideration of the construction agreements, engagements, and change orders. Is there a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions about any of the change orders? Seeing none, we will go ahead and vote. Mic's on.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. Harper,
Yes.
Ms. Farrow,
Yes.
Mr. Lyman,
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby,
Yes.
Ms. Snodgrass,
Yes.
Ms. Waters.
Yes. All right. We will move on to board member announcements. Ms. Farrow would be the person on the radio, but she has been stricken with a persistent plague. And so I am going to be on the radio in her stead. And I have one other announcement that it is not at all board related, unless you count that the only reason I get up and breathe in and out every day is because of the support of my husband, who is definitely not watching. So this is pretty much for my benefit, but it is our anniversary today. Today we are married 24 years. And so in the spirit of gratitude for all good things, I want to thank my husband for being such a stellar partner.
He is very helpful to us, apparently, for giving us so much of your time.
If there are any other announcements, go ahead and just say them.
I just wanted to point out to all of those who pore over our agenda every month faithfully that under our board announcements now, you can find the board assignments for each one of us. I know a lot of our PTA groups like to invite board members to activities, and so you can find this at the bottom of our agendas under announcements, who's assigned to what schools, and it's also available on our website now under Board of Education.
Thank you for that. Is there a motion to adjourn? Seriously, not.
I move to adjourn.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Willoughby, for joining for Zoom.